Hey, what's up everybody? Flying Scorpion here, and this is the final update video for this Ice Freeze character that I talked about in the past couple of videos. If you didn't see those videos, just to give you a quick summary, this build uses three things in particular to get maximum freeze potential on enemies, and that is Glacial Hammer, because it has a 400% more freeze. If you read that line, every third successive strike freezes as though dealing a 400% more damage. And that's actually the very first swing. So the very first swing has that effect, and then you have two regular swings, and then a big third swing, and every third swing from that point on is like that. If you combine that with Pain Seeker gloves, they have a special effect on there that says inflict non-damaging ailments as though dealing between 100 to 200% more damage. Obviously, you want to go for a high roll, you can get up to 200% more. And then there's this chest piece called Expedition's End. Freeze chilled enemies as though dealing 93% more damage. Nearby enemies are chilled. And when you multiply this all together, you get like a 20 to 30 times multiplier on your freeze effect. So even if you're fighting a really tanky boss, like a tier 16 map boss, you can still freeze them and permanently freeze them. So in that environment, this build works out really well. The nice thing about it too is that even if you don't do very much damage, so let's say for example my Hydrosphere does very little damage, but it still freezes enemies as if it's doing quite a bit more, which is quite nice. So it freezes whole packs of monsters. With more investments into the build, you can get a better setup. Like instead of having Hex Touch, you could have Awakened Hex Touch. And then you could get more AoE in here or something like that by putting a... There's lots of ways to get this build to be better. I got the build finished with about 5 exalts worth in total investments. The weapon is like between an Alk to a Chaos Orb. These gloves are about a Chaos Orb. This shield I got for 12 Chaos, and most of the gear I got for about 15 or less Chaos. This ring is about 1 to 5 Chaos. This ring lets you apply an additional curse, and I use that with my Hydrosphere to apply Temporal Chains and Frostbite, which slows the enemies down and makes them more susceptible to cold damage, and also makes it easier to freeze them. If I had Awakened Hex Touch, I would drop that ring, and I would put this other ring that applies Socketed Curse on hit, and then I would put increased AoE right here and put the Frostbite in the ring. And then I could still... I think that would work. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to test it out. Hydrosphere also applies cold exposure to enemies, so they have 10% less cold resistance. And that's nice. Even if they're immune to curses, then you're still able to get that little bit of extra damage with it. The chest piece itself was it's about 25 to 35 Chaos at the time when I was looking. In Ultimatum League. In Standard League, it's about 5 to 15 exalts, and because of the price difference, this is what made me decide to play in Ultimatum League. And the most expensive thing for the entire build was just 6-linking the chest piece. That's it. So you know it's a budget build when the most expensive thing is just 6-linking the chest piece. After that, getting the sockets set up right is kind of tricky, because this is normally a green/blue chest piece, and going for 4 red and 2 green is pretty tricky. I used Harvest Craft. You can get these Harvest Crafts that force 2 sockets, so like 1 red, 1 green, 1 blue, 1 red, 1 blue, 1 green kind of thing. If you just keep doing the 1 red, 1 green one again and again, you'll eventually get to, on average, 3 green and 3 red, and then you just keep on doing it, and you'll eventually get 4 red and 2 green, just like this. And that's how I did it. You know, that was a lot cheaper than using chromatic orbs, that's for sure. As far as flasks go, I don't know. I don't even know what would be the best flask. I just picked these. I think they're pretty good. Consecrated Ground is nice, but yeah. All right, let's go to the skill tree. It's an Ascendant. There's lots of nice stuff here in the Ascendant area. You don't have to have this Unnatural Instinct. I just thank you to Jar, by the way. If Jar is watching this video, he hooked me up with 5 exalts to help cover the cost of this, and that's a nice boost to AoE right here and duration, which is great for Hydrosphere. We got some block chance, resistances, life, mostly defensive stuff, and then some accuracy over here. This accuracy is very helpful. Then we spec into Templar so we can get into the Templar start area, so we can just jump without having to path our way there. We jump straight to Templar area and go out, get some life, some resistances, reduce mana reservation, more life resistances, endurance charges, and then some nice damage nodes that work really well with one-handed maces or glacial hammer and whatnot. Also right here I pick up this increased elemental damage and chance to apply elemental elements, life, resistances, elemental overload, so that you're not going to crit very often, but when you do, you get some extra damage, and then some dexterity, and then up in here in the cluster jewels there's a couple of interesting things. One of them is cold conduction, so whenever you shock it, or whenever you chill an enemy with your hits, they are also shocked. I put that on a cluster jewel that gives me increased effectiveness of non-damaging ailments, and I also got this, this overshock node, which increases the effectiveness of the shock, and also allows you to shock enemies for up to 60% more damage. Getting to 60% more damage on your shock I'm not sure if I can do that with this build. You might be able to get that. I don't have it, that's for sure. And for those of you who are new to Path of Exile, what that means is, let's say you hit an enemy and you shock them for 60%. That means every hit after that deals 60% more damage. It's a huge increase, and it's really helpful when you're in a team. So if you've got like 5 other people on your team and you hit the enemy and you shock them, everybody on the team is now doing more damage because of that. So that really helps to compensate for the low DPS on this build. And here's the alert here, warning, low DPS, trigger warning. I'm at 766 non-shaper DPS and like 350 shaper DPS, so it's a low DPS build. It's not meant to be played solo. It's meant to be played in a team with other people. So you run up to the boss, you hit the boss gets frozen, and people don't die. If you're running pure Chayula runs, and everybody's standing around the portal, and they're afraid to go in because they don't want to lose their experience, this build can very safely go through the portal, run up to Chayula, even monster level 83 or whatever, kiss him, and he's frozen. You just hit him with your mace, he's frozen, and he's permanently frozen. You say, okay, everybody can come in, and you have time to walk away and drop a portal and walk back to the boss. They're so frozen. How? Well, when all the multipliers come together, let's go to the ailment effect. The freeze duration, even though you're hitting on average for about 300,000, it's as if you're hitting for about almost 9 million per hit. And it says right here, for a freeze to apply the minimum of 0.3 seconds, the target must have no more than 377 million ailment threshold. To put that into perspective, it's been calculated that Cirrus, Awakener of Worlds, this like big super tanky boss at the end of the game, has about 25 million ailment threshold. So 25 million ailment threshold on one of the biggest bosses in the game versus 377 million ailment threshold. It's more than 10 times the amount necessary to freeze Cirrus. Now, here's the difficult thing and probably the worst thing about the build. There are a lot of super powerful bosses that are immune to freeze. So Cirrus, the Shaper, the Elder, probably the Maven, the Conquerors of the Atlas, the Guardians, they can't be frozen. They can be slowed down. And you know what? It's not too bad. Like, you can actually face tank a lot of stuff. Surprisingly, I was just doing a run earlier today. I don't know if I could face tank them with like really scary mods, but with just like blue mods, the Guardians or whatnot, and even I think the Shaper or the Elder, I was able to face tank a lot of them. Now you can't face tank everything, but you can slow them down, and what ends up happening is they don't hit very often, so they'll hit you, your health will get chunked, and then you'll recover, and then they hit again, and your health gets chunked, and then you recover. So it slows them down. So if they had a really huge one-shot crit, you're still gonna die, but for the most part, you can do okay on those bosses. I don't recommend using this build for those bosses. This is my first time making taking a build of my own design this far up to level 95, and now I'll just showcase some of what the build can do for you. So let's go to, oh yeah, I have lots of sulfite. Let's just delve straight down here. Monster level 83. So this is generally what you would expect from like a tier 15, tier 16 map, is monster level 83. So I'm just going to do that. They're frozen upon the first cast. It's not even pulsating yet. Let me get my Holy Relic up to heal myself. And yeah, you can just... That's not even Glacial Hammer. So let's... I'll actually hit some stuff with Glacial Hammer. Boom. Just shatters. Trash mobs get shattered. You also have Culling Strike. So if you're up against like a rare mob, like this one right here, when they get to 30% or less life, Glacial Hammer has this like built-in culling strike. I have no melee splash, by the way, on the gems. So once we clear these guys, and before I activate the next zone here, no melee strike, no ancestral call, or no melee splash, no ancestral call. There's no AoE stuff linked up with this. This is Glacial Hammer with Awakened added cold damage. Also, thanks to Jar for hooking me up with this. Hypothermia, Ruthless, Elemental damage with attacks, and Multi-Strike. You can get a couple more Awakened skill gems in there to crank it up a little bit higher and get closer to 1,000,000 DPS, which is not bad. But yeah, we've also got pretty good recovery because I'm using both the Stone Golem as well as the Holy Relic, and I have +2 levels to them with my helmet, and yeah, Elemental Army as well as Minion Life to make them tanky so they don't die, and these things basically never die. And what's really cool is that I was doing a Delirium map with someone today, really tough boss. I think it was like 60% Delirious, and that boss was hitting super hard, and I hung back and my Stone Golem was tanking like a boss. The Stone Golem can tank so well. What else is there to point out? I've got Tempest Shield and Immortal Call on cast when damage taken. I'm also passively generating endurance charges with Enduring Composure. And I forgot to mention this earlier on, but we're using Blast Freeze, which is like a free elemental proliferation. So when you freeze an enemy, it spreads to nearby enemies as well. How are we getting the AoE damage is through Winter's Burial. Winter's Burial adds cold splash damage to Glacial Hammer. And I've got 2 of them. That's the maximum that you can run. This small node right here gives just extra block chance. And this one, I think I just said, or I'll just say again here, it gives you passive endurance charge generation. So whenever you get hit, you just generate endurance charges. Anything else to talk about with the skills? No, not really. I mean, I've got some auras, defensive auras mostly. I have this Enlightened Support level 4, thanks to Jar. Another thank you to Jar for hooking me up with this. That gave me the extra little bit of mana reservation reduction to slip in a Dread Banner. And the only real thing we're getting from Dread Banner is the reduced accuracy on the enemies. We don't benefit from Impaling, because this is pretty much all cold damage. Ancestral War Chief is there for just a little bit of extra damage. And I think that's it covers pretty much all the sockets and links. Alright, let's activate this thing. This is going to be pretty easy. Just stand here and hit everything. Like I said, it's definitely good in a team. This helps keep your teammates alive very easily. When you're doing ultimatums, this build can freeze everything in the ultimatum. The survival ultimatums is where this does the best, because it doesn't matter if you kill the enemies. You just move your Hydrosphere around the arena, and everything just gets frozen. And then you just survive. You just wait until the timer goes down and you survive. And that's that. So there you go. That's the final update for the Freeze character. I've had fun with it. My biggest disappointment is fighting the high level stuff like Cirrus or the Elder or whatnot. I think that you can do it with this build. It's just that the fact that those bosses cannot be completely frozen, it just guts this build. Like, that's what this build is all about. It's all about freezing stuff. So this is something where I would take with people running maps, and then if you're going to start getting into killing the Elder and things like that, maybe take a different build, or at least make sure you have somebody who does high DPS with you when you fight those bosses. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.